What's up guys, Justin here with the CGEssentials.com, back with another Blender floor plan modeling tutorial for you. So in today's video we're going to talk about a couple different ways to model cabinets inside of our floor plan. Now let's go ahead and just jump into it. So there are a couple different ways to do this. In this video I'm going to focus on manually creating your cabinets. I will also link to a video I created about using the add-on ARCHIMESH in order to create cabinets in your models as well. So if you don't want to model everything manually, that's another option. And so in order to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to do a Shift A and we're going to add a cube, because the cube is the closest to the shape that we want to create. And so once we do that, what we can do is we can start working on getting our cube to the right size. And so the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to start by moving it up so that it's aligned with the ground. And you may want to turn on vertex snapping when you do this. So I'm going to lock this to the Z axis, and I'm going to lock this and I'm going to use vertex snapping to snap this so that the bottom of it is touching the ground. And so what I want to do is I want to size and locate this cube so that it's in the location where I want my cabinet to be. And so there's a few different ways you can do this. I'm going to move to straight up and down, and I'm just going to use the move tool. And so we'll just tap the G key and then the Y key in order to lock this to this green axis. And we're basically going to line this up so that it's kind of aligned with the cabinet from our image. And then I'm going to tab into edit mode. You don't have to tab into edit mode. You could scale this from within object mode, but I like doing it in edit mode because I feel like it gives me a little bit more control. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tap the 3 key on my keyboard, and then I'm going to move this in by tapping G and then X. And what I'm doing is I'm basically sizing this out so that it aligns with the cabinet that's shown on my floor plan. So that I'm going to tab back into object mode real quick, and I'm just going to use the measure tool to measure the distance between this point and this point. So you can see how this has a height of about 2'7" right now. What that means is that this needs to move up another probably 8 inches. So I'm going to hit the delete key to delete that. We'll tab back into edit mode, and then we'll just move this up 8 inches. I'm going to hit the enter key, and you may have to come in here and type 8 inches in the move box. What I've done is I've created a cabinet that's 32 inches high. And so now let's start working on our door. So what I want to do is I want to extrude this face out. So I'm going to tap the E key, and I'm going to extrude it to right here. Then I'll extrude it again the thickness of my door. And so once I've extruded this out, I just want to do an Alt click to select all of these faces. And I'm going to go over and I'm going to click and hold, and I want to select the option for extrude along normals. What extrude along normals is going to do is that's going to allow me to extrude this in. So I've got a little gap here, like we've got a door on this face. So you can see how we did that. And again, we're doing this pretty simple. We haven't really created like a trim piece or anything like that. I'm not going to worry about that too much in this video. You can model this out to whatever level of detail that you want though. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select this face, and I'm going to inset it by tapping the I key. So we're going to inset it right here, and then I'm going to inset it again right here. And what that allowed me to do is that allowed me to create a loop, which I can do an Alt click. Then I can extrude this back so that I've got a little bit of recess right here. And so this is a fairly simple cabinet. We're going to leave this as is for right now. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to call this good. But I'm going to tab out of my cabinet, and now I want to create a counter. So in order to create a counter, I'm just going to do a Shift A. I'm going to add a plane. And you can do this with a cube as well, but I'm going to go ahead and add a plane. So I'm going to move this right here. I'm going to tab into edit mode, select this edge, move it over so that it aligns with this corner. And I'm going to select this edge, move it back so that it aligns with this corner. And then we're going to tap 3 to go into face editing mode, and we're just going to extrude this up. So, and I'm also going to move this face out a little bit. Then on the backs, and then what I want to do is I want to add a little back piece right here that moves up. And so in order to do that, I'm just going to add a loop cut. So I'm going to do a Control R and click, and then move my mouse and click right here. And then we can select this face and we can extrude this up. And so what that's given us is that's given us a little counter piece. And so one thing I like to do is I like to select these edges and then do a Control B to bevel them. And I just want to bevel this off a little bit so it doesn't just look completely square. You can do the same thing up here. Bevel that out right here. So what that's done is that's allowed us to create this fairly simple cabinet. So when I look at this cabinet door does need to be off the ground so it doesn't look weird. So let's go ahead and fix that real quick. I'm going to select this, tab into edit mode, and then I'm going to hold the Z key and go over to wireframe. So when I go over into wireframe, that's going to allow me to see everything that's contained in here. Well, what that allows me to do is I can select everything by dragging a box across it. Then I can tap the G key and move everything up. So I can move this up just a little bit. So maybe we'll call it 6 inches. So then we can hold the Z key, go back into solid mode. And so once you've moved this up, in this situation, we don't need to model this out in crazy detail. You can just tab in here, select this bottom piece, and just extrude it down so it's level right here. So now you have one cabinet. And we'll worry in just a second about adding textures to this. But in this situation, now what I want to do is I want to duplicate these. And so in order to duplicate these, what I want to do is I want to click on one, then do a shift click and click on the other and do a shift D. And then tap the X key in order to move this along the X axis. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this over here to the other side of my oven space. And one thing you want to make sure to do if these are going to be copies of the exact same thing is you may want to check the box for linked. And so if you check the box for linked, what this is going to do is this is going to link your new object to your old object. So now, if I was to tab into my old object and select this and make a change, you can see how it's going to change on the other object as well because I selected that option for linked. And so what that means is now if I come in here and make adjustments, I only have to do that once, not twice. And so now let's add some textures to this. And so we're going to apply a couple textures that I found online. So we're going to apply a granite material, which I got from 3D Textures, and a wood material, which I can't remember where I got it, but I will link to it in the notes down below. But what we need to do is we need to apply a texture to these objects. So to do that, we're going to go into the shading workspace. We're going to start by adding a wood material. So I'm going to take this wood material, and I'm just going to create a new material. See how this creates a principled BSDF shader. Make sure you have Node Wrangler enabled, and then just tap Control-Shift-T. And then we're just going to find our wood materials, and we're just going to click on Principled Texture Setup. And what that's going to do is that's going to set up a wood texture. And so notice how this isn't really being placed on these faces quite properly, right? So it's not sized properly, it's not sitting on any of these faces the way that we want it to. So what we want to do is we want to UV map these objects. So to do that, we're going to go into the UV editing toolbar. And for this, notice how I'm in edit mode. I'm just going to tap A to select everything. Then I'm just going to right click on this. And in this situation, because these are all just square shapes, you should be able to go into UV unwrap faces and just do a cube projection. So when you do a cube projection, what that's going to do is that's going to project the layout of your materials into your UV map right here. So now if you look at this, you can see how your wood grain is running a lot. It's making a lot more sense with the way that this is in here. And I can also select everything by tapping A, and then coming over here and tapping A and then scaling this up or down in order to adjust how this sits on this face. So I could also move it around if I wanted to, and I could also move various different objects around separately. So if you want to like customize the way that this wood is on this face, you can do that. So you can see how adding this wood material was fairly simple. Now we're going to do the same thing with our countertops. So we're just going to go into shading, new, Control-Shift-T, and we'll bring these maps in. And so again, we want to make sure we do the same thing with our UV mapping. So go to UV editing, make sure you're in edit mode and tap A, and then right click, UV unwrap faces, cube projection. And so you can see how again, this does a pretty decent job of mapping out this texture in here. And then you can also adjust the size by adjusting your objects over here by tapping A and then tapping the S key in order to scale this. So now, let's go ahead and let's add a couple handles to these. So we're just going to go into our layout, You can put this in material preview mode if you want, but then I want to just quickly add a handle. And so let's go ahead and let's do a Shift A. Let's add a cube. And so we're going to take our cube, scale it down a bit. We're going to move it so that it's aligned with this face. And we're just going to use this cube in order to create our handle. So I'm just going to scale this down by tapping the S key. We'll go ahead, we'll move this so that it's aligned with this face. And then we can just tap the scale key and then just scale it along the x-axis right here. And so depending on how in-depth you want to get with this, you could do a couple different things. So for example, I could scale this on the z-axis so it's kind of narrow. Then I can tab into edit mode and do a Control R in order to add an edge loop. And then I could extrude this face down along the z-axis just like this. And then I'm just going to take this, move it so that it's aligned with this face. And then once I have this set up the way that I want it, I can do a Shift D and make a copy that's aligned on this face right here. So that's a quick, easy, so that's an easy way to manually create your cabinets. There's some other things you could do with your cabinets as well, but this should be enough to kind of get you started, and you can start working from here. So you can basically use this method to model out any of your cabinets inside of your models. In addition, I will link to a video down below where you can use the add-on ARCHIMESH to create cabinets as well. But if you like this video, please remember to click that like button down below. If you're new around here, remember to click that subscribe button for new Blender content every week. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. I really appreciate it, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks, guys.